On Unsolved, Florida this week, I have 3 videos of individuals who disappeared from the same location between 1989 to 1990. For our first video today on Unsolved, Florida, a mother goes to her son's home and finds the house covered in blood and his car tires slashed with no trace of her son. It's been 36 years and Dwayne David DeFazio is still missing. Dwayne was born on September 26, 1963, and was only 25 years old at the time of his disappearance. We don't know a lot of Dwayne's early life, but we do know that he married Marion Lucy in 1983. However, the marriage ended in divorce in 1987. Dwayne worked in the shipping department at Burdine's department store in the Orlando Fashion Square Mall. He lived in Orange County, Florida, in a mobile home by himself. On May 27, 1989, Dwayne went to the Fairbanks Inn with some friends. The place was nicknamed the FBI. It was located at 1800 West Fairbanks Avenue in Winter Park, Florida. It was a local bar and music venue. According to news reports, he was dropped off at his mother's home that evening and never seen again. This is where the story gets a little confusing because the last people who saw him, according to all of the missing persons reports, dropped him off at his mother's house. So either he spent the night and went home without telling her, or she was not home when he was there. Because after not hearing from her son in an uncertain amount of time, his mother went to his house in Lockhart. This is when she found the blood in his bed all over the floor. She also saw that his yellow Chevrolet Chevette was sitting out front with all of the tires sliced, and the windshield was smashed in. The police did not release the date that his mother went to his house, just that May 27th of 1989 was the last time he was confirmed seen, and that seems to be by his friends who dropped him off. Dwayne's sister Donna hired private investigators after the police ran through all their leads. She also hired forensic psychics and personally interviewed people that saw her brother the night he disappeared. From those interviews, they were able to name a suspect and gave all the information they had gotten over to the police. The suspect's name was Kenny Arnold. Here he is pictured above. He was also local to the Lockhart area. He allegedly had threatened to kill Dwayne many times and, quote, dismember his body and feed him to the alligators. Arnold's girlfriend at the time, Stacy McRary, gave him an alibi, but after his suicide in 2005, she came forward and stated that she was with Kenny Arnold when he stabbed and then shot him in his own home. The girlfriend stated that she drove her boyfriend and another man to Dwayne's house that night. She was waiting in the car for a long time, not knowing what was going on, and when she walked inside, they were stabbing him. When he wasn't dying fast enough, they shot him. Dwayne's remains have never been located to this day. As of May 1989, Dwayne was a white male, 5'7", weighed approximately 170 pounds. He had black hair, brown eyes, a mustache, and wore prescription glasses. So in this case, we do have a little bit more information than we normally would. In cases this old, I want to start off by saying obviously the suspect, Kenny, was a violent person, and I'm going to assume that if he was saying things like this and allegedly committing crimes like this, he was probably also abusing his girlfriend. It's not surprising that she came forward after he committed suicide, and I'm actually very glad she did. It's very possible that even if they were not still together over the years, she was scared of him. However, there was another person there that night per her story, and perhaps police know who it is, but they have never been named. The police did say that they believe Kenny committed suicide because he knew they were about to arrest him. Police say they are still searching for Dwayne's remains, and they are hoping for someone to come forward with even more information. I have read online in interviews that the family has given that they believe Kenny Arnold was involved in a satanic cult, but there's zero evidence to prove that, and that would not be my first guess. Also, his girlfriend didn't mention anything about him being in a cult. However, her statements to police are not completely public, so she could have said more that the police aren't telling us. A news outlet actually interviewed Kenny's mom, Frances, the suspect, and she says she lived in fear of her only son. She was always scared that he was going to hurt her. Quote, Kenny had a temper, and he told me Dwayne spit in his face. I said, well, you don't do that to Kenny. The murder was always in the back of my mind, but he was my son, and he said he didn't do it. End quote. Frances is the one who found Kenny face down on his bed after he died from a drug overdose. He left a suicide note that said, quote, "I hope everyone is happy now," end quote. In a way, it's interesting that both mothers found their sons deceased, or at least the crime scene. How horrible for both sides of this crime that they both lost their sons. Neither of these moms were involved in the crimes, and it's kind of sad to think how they both lost sons, but in different ways. I want to add that the population of Lockhart, Florida in 1989 was about 11,000 people. So it's not super small, but it's definitely a town where you have a reputation and you know a lot of the locals, especially the ones that hang out at the same bar. Dwayne was known to frequent this bar as well as many others, especially on the weekends. So to wrap up this episode, I'm glad the family can be somewhat at peace knowing that he's not out there missing or running away, even though he is declared as a missing person. As sad as it is that his life was taken from him, at least they have the knowledge that he is no longer with us. However, no one can truly be at peace until his remains are found and he's properly laid to rest. If the girlfriend isn't willing to share that information or simply doesn't know, and if the other man that was there that night also doesn't know, I highly doubt his remains will be found unless by accident, because it's been a very long time, 36 years. The suspect, Kenny, had threatened to feed him to the alligators. I have a feeling this might not be Kenny's only crime, and I also think Dwayne might be in one of those very remote, swampy areas that are all throughout Florida. I'm not sure what physical evidence that the police have, but retesting it would be a good place to start, especially to identify the second man, because even though Kenny is gone, perhaps this other man is still out there and living, and at least he could be held accountable for Dwayne's death, and maybe even locate his remains. There are so many unidentified people that have been found. The family seems to be pretty involved, so I'm assuming they have already given their DNA to have on file to be ran against the John Does. But according to the Charlie Project, it says that Dental's fingerprints and DNA are unknown. So for some reason, if the family is watching or you have a loved one that is missing, definitely get your DNA done. It's free and it's a great thing to have in the system. I'm really curious if the police know this other man's name, if the girlfriend knows his name, or any identifying information about him. Maybe they're just not letting the public know. Even if he wasn't the one with the knife, wasn't the one with the gun, he is still responsible for being there and potentially covering up the crime scene and hiding the body. So back to the theme of this week's videos, he was recently seen before his death and known to frequent the Fairbanks Inn. It was initially opened in 1946 on the north side of the Fairbanks Avenue in Winter Park. It then relocated to the 1700 block in the 1970s. It was known to be a rowdy place with a pool table and hosted many local and national musical acts. It closed its doors sometime in the year 2000. So remember to check back this week for the next 2 videos. And as always, if you have any information about this case, please contact the Orange County Sheriff's Office at 407-836-9951. His case number is 891-23820. Thank you for watching, and that's all for today.